What does it actually take to get blacklisted from Hollywood in 2026? Is it one scandal, one bad headline, one controversial tweet, or is it something much quieter, something the industry never officially announces? Welcome back to The Real Cinema, guys, where we break down what's worth watching and what's really happening behind the scenes of the industry. And today, we're tackling a question that Hollywood will never answer publicly. Which actors and actresses are effectively blacklisted in 2026, and is there any coming back from it? Let's break it down. First up, we have Kevin Spacey. This is probably the clearest modern example of what a full industry shutdown looks like. Two-time Oscar winner, critically untouchable at his peak, the face of prestige television with House of Cards, and then multiple allegations surfaced leading to criminal trials, global backlash, and immediate industry retreat. Now here's what's interesting. Several legal cases outcomes didn't result in convictions. But in Hollywood, legal innocence doesn't equal career resurrection. Studios calculate optics, insurance risks, audience backlash, and global market response. And when your reputation is viewed as radioactive, that calculation rarely swings back in your favor. By 2026, Spacey is working, but largely outside the mainstream Hollywood machine. The A-list doors remain firmly shut. That's what modern blacklisting looks like. Not prison, not disappearance, just exile from the system. Next, let's talk about Gina Carano. She was riding some serious momentum after breaking out in the Mandalorian series. She had franchise potential, physical credibility, and a growing fan base. But controversial social media posts led to her being dropped by Lucasfilm, and almost instantly her trajectory shifted. Here's the key difference with Carano. This wasn't about on-set behavior or criminal allegations. This was about brand alignment. In 2026, studios are global corporations. If your public identity conflicts with corporate messaging or alienates international markets, you become a liability. She's still acting, just not within the traditional Hollywood power structure. That shift tells you everything about how controlled the modern system has become. But now let's flip the script for a minute, because not every attempted blacklist works. Let's talk about Matthew McConaughey. In the early 2000s, McConaughey was the king of romantic comedies with hit movies like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and The Wedding Planner. He was charming, marketable, and safe. And then he did something risky. He stopped. He publicly stepped away from rom-coms because he didn't want to be boxed in. He wanted darker roles, serious material, prestige drama. Unfortunately, Hollywood didn't reward that decision for the next 18 months. Studios couldn't see him as anything other than the shirtless rom-com lead. When he refused those scripts, he wasn't being canceled, but he was being sidelined. McConaughey persevered. He waited. He did the work. He turned down easy money. He held out for the roles he wanted. And then came The Lincoln Lawyer, then Mud, then Dallas Buyers Club, which won him an Oscar, and of course True Detective, which redefined his entire career. Now let's look at someone whose fall was explosive and self-inflicted. Jussie Smollett. At one point, Smollett was building a solid career off the success of Empire, but after staging a hate crime hoax, a scandal that dominated headlines, his career imploded almost overnight. Studios do not tolerate narratives that damage credibility on that scale. Trust is currency in Hollywood, and once that's gone, rebuilding it is nearly impossible. By 2026, he remains largely absent from major studio projects. Whether that changes, it would require a massive public rehabilitation arc, and so far, that hasn't materialized. Then there's Amber Heard. This one divided the internet like almost nothing else in recent memory. The legal battle between Heard and Johnny Depp became a global spectacle, and regardless of where people stood, the impact on her career was undeniable. She appeared in Aquaman and The Lost Kingdom, but her screen time was reduced, and major studio casting announcements since then have been minimal. In 2026, she hasn't vanished completely, but she's certainly not operating at blockbuster leading lady level. Is that blacklisting, or is it brand fatigue? Hollywood rarely clarifies. It just moves on. Now let's talk about someone who wasn't canceled for scandal, but for speaking out, Brendan Fraser. Before his comeback, there was a long stretch where Brendan Fraser disappeared from major roles, despite being one of the most beloved stars of the late 90s, playing notably in the Mummy trilogy. He later opened up about personal trauma and alleged misconduct within the industry. After that, opportunities slowed dramatically. His eventual Oscar-winning comeback with The Whale proved something something important that sometimes the industry freezes you out quietly, not publicly, not aggressively, just enough that you fade. His return is proof that blacklisting isn't always permanent, but it can take a decade to reverse. Another interesting case, Mel Gibson. Gibson's career nosedived after widely publicized anti-Semitic remarks and legal issues in the 2000s. For years, he was effectively sidelined from mainstream Hollywood directing gigs. Yet over time, he slowly worked his way back into projects. Not at the peak of his Braveheart era, but certainly not erased either. He represents a different model, partial exile, gradual rehabilitation. It shows yet again that blacklisting isn't always permanent. It's sometimes just long. And now we get to one of the most chaotic and tragic modern cases, Ezra Miller. Miller was positioned to lead a major superhero franchise as The Flash, but a string of arrests, assault allegations, and erratic public behavior created a PR nightmare for Warner Brothers. The Flash film still released, but the future of Miller within blockbuster franchises became deeply uncertain. In 2026, the silence around new tentpole casting says more than any official statement ever could. Studios do not gamble hundreds of millions on unpredictability. Fair or not, stability matters more than talent in that system. And now, finally, we have Shia LaBeouf. I put him at the end for a reason, because unlike some names on this list, LaBeouf's situation feels layered, complicated, and frustrating. So layered, I created a whole video on his downfall. From Transformers fame to genuinely raw performances in films like Lawless and Honey Boy, he proved he wasn't just a former child star. He had serious dramatic power. When he commits to a role, he disappears into it. He's unpredictable in the best artistic way, but off-screen unpredictability became the bigger narrative. Legal troubles, public incidents, abuse allegations, lawsuits. Studios began seeing him not as a performer, but as a risk assessment. And in 2026, that's the difference between leading a $150 million production and scrambling for independent roles. What makes Shia's case fascinating is that you can still see the talent, the intensity, and the potential, which raises the ultimate Hollywood question. Is he blacklisted or just waiting for the right redemption script? Because here's what we've learned. In 2026, blacklisting isn't a press release. It's not a dramatic studio memo. It's not 1950s Hollywood blacklist era. It's algorithms, insurance clauses, global brand sensitivity, social media volatility, and streaming metrics. You don't get publicly banned, you just stop getting invited altogether. And the scariest part, the industry never confirms it. It simply moves forward without you. But if there's one thing Hollywood loves almost as much as power, it's a comeback story. So the real question isn't who's blacklisted, it's who's one role away from rewriting their whole narrative. Let me know in the comments, who do you think is permanently out and who's due for a massive return? If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure you like, subscribe, and stick with The Real Cinema for more breakdowns of the industry's biggest stories. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next video.